joking about each other that he puts your luggage on the luggage rack in the hotel room.
Yes, yes.
That used to be a thing that Christine and I complained about.
Yes, no idea.
We go, and Kody would open up his luggage and put it on the rack, and then I was like, well, I guess I'll put mine over here in the corner.
No, it was always on the floor.
I know somebody's going to be like, oh, James was definitely going to talk about this. You're right. Of course I'm going to talk about it because I don't think it's just a silly story that Janelle and Christine shared at Christine's event. I think that this is something that is an example of how Kody conducted all of his relationships, all of his marriages throughout the 30 years that he had the Brown family all together. I think that this is just something that was set up. Now, I understand that there are some people who may say, well, it's just a small thing and it's not that big a deal. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a deal. However, I will say this. How you do small things is how you do all things. Everything is related and everything has to be considered when you're conducting or at least trying to evaluate somebody's mental state and how they perceive the world and how they move through the world. As an example, if you're willing to lie about something small, you're willing to tell a small lie so that, you're convenienced, then I'd be willing to hazard the guess that if your job, your lifestyle, your home, or something that you care about is at stake, you would have zero problems lying and being dishonest. Like, same in this scenario, if you being convenienced when you go away with your wife and this simple act of, I want to make sure that I am being convenienced always in this relationship, I think that carries over to how he conducted himself throughout these relationships. For instance, when you look at season 1, episode 1, where we're introduced to Kody, here's a man who has 13 children with 3 wives, and he's sitting in a luxury car. He pulls into the driveway after he does the whole, hi, I'm Kody Brown. I'm here to talk about some crazy stuff and polygamy and why I deserve more wives and why I should be able to marry Robin. He pulls into the driveway where you see vehicles with tape on the window. We see the truck that the engine blew up in. We see the baloney skin ass tires that they have on all the trucks. These trucks are about a pebble or a crack in the street away from being up on bricks. But he's driving in a luxury convertible vehicle because it's convenient for him. Later on, he gets himself a girlfriend and he goes to see his girlfriend, even though the family is struggling financially. And as described by Madison in her podcast, as well as in the book, they were struggling to put food on the table. But it was in Kody's best interest, Kody's purview of convenience, that he wanted to travel 5 hours so that he could go see his girlfriend every week. This is him looking out for himself and not others, him only considering himself and not others. Another example of it, when they got out to Las Vegas, I take the position that when they purchased those homes and they decided to sell those homes, part of the reason they decided to sell those homes was because Kody's name wasn't on all 4 of those properties. Then when they get out to Arizona, the first thing he does is they spend $1 million on trying to get Kody Pass, where his name is on all the lots. Then he purchased himself close to $1 million home that he blames on Robin, and we've oftentimes referred to as Robin's house. But let's be honest and let's be crystal clear. That is Kody's house. That is the house that Kody has his name on. That's the house that Kody insisted on the show that they purchase. It's all in the convenience of Kody. So there's no surprise that if they do something as simple as go out on a vacation or go to a hotel, that Kody is taking all the things of convenience for himself.
So when I used to go somewhere with Kody, he would always set his suitcase up, usually on the luggage rack, and then I just had to leave mine on the floor.
Kody takes the rack, and he uses the rack for himself. And the first time he did it with me was our honeymoon. He took out the rack and he put a suitcase on it, and I'm like, well, that's bizarre. I thought that he would have given me the luggage rack, but I just had to put my luggage on the floor. But then did it again and again. And I'm like, oh, this is just his thing. He's just going to take the luggage rack.
Part of the issue that I have with this is, yes, Kody was not being a gentleman. Kody was not being a companion. But at the same time, ladies, you have to be able to open your mouth and say something. If you don't like something that your partner is doing, you got to tell them that this is not going to fly. Why is your luggage on the rack? Don't just assume that this is something he does and, oh, it's okay because he did it. No, that's not appropriate. Sometimes you got to check a fool. And you got to let them know that this is something that we're not going to go along with. There's another part of this where Kody, tries to defend himself from these ladies giving this confessional. And this is what he had to say.
Once you break up, it's like everything you go back to is like, there's this and this and this, and the luggage rack is just a petty thing to complain about.
And I disagree. I disagree with this notion and idea that it's just a petty thing to complain about. Now, will people break up and start pulling up little itsy bits and nitpick things because that they didn't like while they were in a relationship? Absolutely, that is a possibility. However, let's be very honest with ourselves in this particular situation. There are certain expectations that you have when you're dealing with a paramour, especially as a guy who's supposed to be a macho man and a protector of all and a provider and a protector. Why is it that so many people pretend like they're going to protect their wives, their girlfriends, their family from these once in maybe a lifetime, if ever, events? Like, for instance, one of the big talking points in the manosphere that Kody admits that he is a big listener to, they always use this refrain that if someone were to break into the house, it would be the man who is going to go down and protect the household. It's going to be the man who's going to investigate that bump in the night. And because the man is the one who is protecting the family, the man deserves the lead because he's the one that's going to have to protect the family based on whatever decision they made. Let's pretend that's the case. Okay, great. My question is, if you're so willing to go down into a dark room or a dark house to protect your wife and your loved ones from something that may or may not happen ever, why wouldn't you be willing to protect her from slipping a disc by picking up her luggage off the ground? Some of those simple things that you teach your kids, especially the young men, is to pay attention, especially when they're out in public. You want to pay attention to your surroundings. You want to pay attention to your environment. You want to look and see if the situation changes, if people's mood changes. Are people moving different? Are they acting more agitated, more aggressive? Are they talking more aggressive? Your ability to be able to see threats could keep you out of a lot of trouble. If you see a fight is about to happen and you leave, that is 100% effective from you getting hit, beat, shot, stabbed, whatever the case may be. That's 100% effective, you not being there. So paying attention to your environment is very important. There's also another basic thing, the art of the handshake. When you shake somebody else's hand, especially just as a guy thing, I know it's a little chauvinist, but pardon me. As a man, if I shake another man's hand, I shake his hand firmly. I make sure we have eye contact, and I make sure that I'm standing up when I do it. I taught my daughter the same thing. These aren't things I just teach my son and I don't teach my daughter. I teach my kids the same thing. But I make sure that he understands the importance of it because he will be judged and evaluated by some of these simple things. How to handle and negotiate doors or entryways. If I walk up to a building and I see an elderly woman walking towards me, I am opening that door and I am standing aside and letting her exit or enter the building before me. I will do that for an older woman. I will do it for a younger woman. I most certainly do it for my lady. When we go out, I will open the door and make sure that she enters or exits the building safely. If I'm walking into a building and for whatever reason, I'm going to go in first, I at least hold the door open for the person behind me. It's just common courtesy. These are things that you teach your kids from a very young age. The idea of how you negotiate car doors, especially when you go out on dates and you're taking a lady with you, you open and close the car door. That's just basic stuff. Kody is such a bad actor that David gets a lot of credit for things that are basic things. And I'm not saying that David's a bad dude. I'm just saying that there's some things that David gets gets a lot of credit for. There's just basic run-of-the-mill everyday stuff. There's a story that I want to tell. I told it during the course of the live, but I want to share it here. There was one night when before me and my wife got married, we were dating, and we went to a movie theater. And when we came out of the movie theater, it was raining cats and dogs. The rain was going sideways. It was like coming down heavy. I told her to just stay in the theater. I'm going to run out, grab the car. I'll pull up. I'll let her in. I ran out. I get the car, pull up to the front of the theater. I open the door up so she could get in. And as I'm closing the door, there's another couple standing there. He said to her, look, you're going to have to go get the car because I'm wearing gaiters and you can't put gaiters in the water. And that struck me so funny because if you've ever spent any time in Louisiana or Florida, or you have National Geographic, or you've even watched any modern day horror movies, you know the gators can be in the water. When you're walking and it's raining and you have an umbrella, the ideal thing for you to do as a young man is for you to open your umbrella and make sure your lady stays dry. If you have to stand in the rain and get rained on because your umbrella is too small for the both of you to fit under it, and you have to make a choice, the choice should be, in fact, it's not even really a choice. She stays dry and you get wet. But because Kody is the way he is, and because he has the obsession that he has, especially with his hair, I can see a scenario where if it was raining, he's going to cover himself with the umbrella to make sure that his hair doesn't get wet. And whoever he's walking with, I hope you got on some goggles and you have a snorkel because you're going underwater. How you do small things is how you do all things. And if he's not showing this little bit of consideration, it explains a lot as to how he conducts himself in these relationships. There's one more example that I want to cite. In last week's episode, there was a point where Kody was talking about he was asked by the church elders to take leadership position within the church, and they had asked him to do something, and it was completely ridiculous for him to think that somebody would ask him to do this little thing. Let's take a listen to what he has to say, and we're going to go over why I think it's connected to this particular issue.
My church was trying to put me in kind of a teaching leadership position. They saw my hair as rebellious. So, Kody, you need to cut your hair. Don't tell me to do things that aren't required by the law or by God.
I mentioned this last week, but to me, this is a reaffirmation of the point that I made last week. If the church is seeing that Kody is obsessed with how he looks and he only takes himself into consideration, and part of that consideration is his hair. Maybe they've heard stories from the wives about how they had somewhere to be and they always get to wherever they're going late. And most of the reason why is because after these ladies have finished getting dressed, including taking their showers, doing their hair, putting on their makeup, getting dressed and doing all that, they're still waiting another hour and a half for Kody to finish with his hair. And so this tells the people who are in charge of the church that Kody has an obsession and he's clearly concerned only about himself, and he doesn't take these other people into consideration. Now, when you talk about that dang on luggage rack, that is another example of how Kody doesn't take people into consideration. I talked about the land. I talked about how he treated these people, his treatment of Robin, and his expectation that these ladies will stick with him throughout his decisions because it conveniences him. It's just another example of this one mindset that it's always about his convenience and what's fun for and what's best for him. When he went out with Robin, it was always, well, I like spending time with Robin. I think it's fun. And because it conveniences me or it pleasures me, then you guys should support it. Whether you're being inconvenienced or not, I don't care what you feel about it. I don't care how it affects you. The only thing that matters to me is that I am comfortable in what is happening. This is part of the reason why I took the position I did last week. You knew I was going to make a video about it. I did. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far into the video, go ahead and hit that like button. Let a player know that you like what I'm doing. Make sure you subscribe so you can see more of my content. Guys, let me know what you think down below. This is My Take. I'm James. This has been My Take on Reality, and I'm out.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could.